Okay. I look like a Neanderthal. Anyway, this Neanderthal read some books and I'm going to talk about it again. That's what we do. And once more I got my favorite tea, my smoked black tea, with orange flavored rock candy. Just like I drank last winter season. Probably my favorite tea. Alright, so let me be frank. There was no November update, no dedicated November update, because there wasn't much happening in November. It is right now, as I'm recording this, the 13th of December. So we are almost halfway through the month. I'm honestly like I am reading and I have a little bit of stuff planned that I would like to read this month, preferably. But I honestly am not really sure if how successful that the execution of the plan is actually gonna be, because my reading hasn't really been like top-notch speed or whatever. It's been going pretty slow. Also, I'm really fucking tired all the time. And also, I guess at the end of this video, I'm gonna do like an conclusion to the year, final look back at 2023. So that's gonna be in this video as well. This might be a long one again, but for now, we got two books that I'm gonna be talking about that I will do right now. This month has been a little bit of a mess, to be honest. But we're almost done with the year, so I guess that's something to look forward to. Anyway, so the first book that I'm gonna be talking about here is Road to Oxiana by Robert Byron. I've talked about Afghanistan over the course of the year quite a lot. I've read a whole bunch of books about the country. You might already be sick of my rambling about this country, but I mean, this is gonna be the last time I'm gonna be talking about Afghanistan this year, I can promise you that. But here we go with one more of these. This book, Road to Oxiana by Robert Byron, is a travel log, a travel diary that was written by Robert Byron in the 1930s. Some fairly wealthy British dude, some student, some scholar or whatever, some guy, some white guy who likes traveling, and he traveled through the Middle East and wrote this diary, which was published by him later on. Not the only travel book that he published either. It's not like a one-time thing. And this guy, his travel texts, and I believe especially this book, is like remembered or like taken as a significant title in the travel non-fiction world of literature. It's something that people still talk about. I don't read travel books. That is really not a genre that I look into. This was a complete first time that I dug into this genre, and it's not one that I usually would pick out. This was more of a conscious step out of my usual interests, aside from the theme of the book, because after all, I am interested in Afghanistan and the Middle East, I guess. So yeah, whatever, you know what I mean. Not usually reading travel books, but this seems to be like regarded as one that stands out still today, probably also because the author is writing in a fairly unique style. There's the author has a personality. I think that there's a lot to this book, and Robert Byron is very much renowned for his incredibly passionate and delicate writing about architecture, because that was his like big old passion, architecture. That's what he went through the Middle East to see, the buildings, and that's what he wrote about in lavish paragraphs. I heard about this book through one of the other Afghanistan books that I read this year. I believe it was mentioned or quoted in that photography book by Jaroslav Ponka, if I remember the name correctly, which I looked at, read, whatever you want to call it, way back in January. It was somewhere. Otherwise, I would have never heard of this. And yeah, it's Robert Byron. It's this guy that just decided in the 1930s to travel through the Middle East by, by whatever means possible. He was traveling through there for over a year, maybe a year and a half, something like that. And he was accompanied for most of it by his friend Christopher. I think there are 3 points that I would mention that make this unique, or I believe that make this unique, relative to other travel logs. Well, maybe there are 4 points. Well, let's just here. I don't have any idea about the genre or the history of this writing style, but here's what I think is going on. 1, Robert Byron, like I said, super passionate about architecture and really renowned for his writing about architecture, and goddamn is it thorough in this. 2, Robert Byron is a fucking character. He is snarky, he is sarcastic, he makes jokes, he is non-caring in a lot of ways, which both like a negative and a positive in a way, because yeah, fuck, that's fun, that's interesting, that's fresh. He has an energy that still works today when it comes to like an entertaining narrator, that sort of way. Honestly, this guy would be very much at home on social media these days, like quote tweeting and dramatizing and having like arguments with strangers just for the shit of it. I think he would really enjoy trolling people. He's just that kind. He gives off that vibe. He's just a snarky little troll. And that can be really funny. And maybe also is a fun juxtaposition between his genuine passion for the history and the architecture of the buildings that he sees, and then like his snarky like comments on whatever is happening. And though that also has the side effect or like the aftertaste that he might be great with architecture, but he isn't great with people. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely people in here that he clearly respects and that he talks about with joy, but he generally doesn't seem to care much about the people. He doesn't seem to be the most empathic type, if you get my drift. Yeah, and also you have to keep in mind that, of course, this white guy, this European white guy in the 30s very much has the sensibilities of a white guy, a European wealthy white guy in the 30s. He talks about other people in a very racialized way. The way he writes about Jews in particular is probably, unfortunately, not out of the ordinary for the time, and probably isn't in most cases even meant to be insulting, but it absolutely is, especially if you're reading it with the sensibilities of the 21st century. If you're reading a book written in the 30s, that's just something you have to deal with. Okay, so the third point, the Middle East during the 30s is a very unique time and place in history, and what makes it more unique is that this dude actually went there and experienced it. There is this very candid point of view of the Middle East in the 30s. I think that's the third point that makes this unique as a travel writing and as something that is still talked about today. And the fourth point, this dude, like, he's not the wealthiest motherfucker in the world or whatever. He isn't like traveling with a limousine through the countries or whatever. Like, he does have money, but he is still just barely getting through parts of the country by foot, horse, taxi, by oftentimes not at all. Like, he is struggling to get through parts of the country, and he is doing that with a sort of non-caring attitude, which also puts him in a bunch of dangerous situations, which he mourns when his traveling is interrupted, but he is never like genuinely worried about his life, even if he is actually genuinely in danger. And there's this non-caring, I don't want to say ignorant, because he's aware of what's going on, but there's this the way about his traveling that just makes for a lot of interesting situations, because he's not shying away from facing danger to get to the next great big piece of architecture. His passion overrides that. He is ready to get dirty and beaten to make it from point A to point B. And this attitude makes for good situations, interesting to read situations in this travel diary. So I think that is the final point, that why this is like fairly unique or like fairly popular still to this day. My reading experience with this was not as bright and brilliant as I made this book maybe seem to be, because, like I said a million times already, not really my genre. I was curious, interested to read this candid point of view of the Middle East during that time, including Afghanistan. Heck, he saw some things that don't exist anymore, and that is amazing. Like, he saw the Bahamian Buddha statues, which were infamously blown to pieces by the Taliban. These were ginormous statues that were standing there for like hundreds, thousands of years, something. But the Taliban destroyed them, and I believe there does not exist a single photograph of these statues intact, because locals were very protective of them until they got destroyed. But Robert Byron, went there when they were still standing, and he was able to see them and write about them, which is like, when he came across them and mentioned them, I was like, oh shit, I recognize those. He got to see them. Hey, fuck yeah. But that's actually also one of the funniest moments in the book, because this dude is so passionate about architecture that he writes paragraphs on paragraphs, pages on pages about each and every intricate detail of a building, and really loses himself in that. And there's many buildings in the Middle East that he absolutely adores. And then he gets to these statues, these Buddha statues, these really big famous statues that are like their destruction is mourned worldwide by historians and whatnot. And he goes on, sees these statues and goes on a lengthy, violent rant about how completely worthless they are in like an architectural sense. And it made me laugh out loud. It was such an unexpected development of things. God, that was funny. Shit. Motherfucker got to see those things and then hated them very vocally. This guy, I swear to God, he would love to share his hot takes in threads on Twitter, I tell you that much. Yeah, I had a decent time with this, though it was a very slow read for me. It's very much written like a diary. Oftentimes there's days where nothing in particular really happens that would be interesting, or at least wasn't interesting to me. There's repetition, especially with the architectural descriptions. If you're not like really into architecture, you're gonna be a bit tired by his lengthy descriptions of the buildings at some point. I much more enjoyed his descriptions of the landscapes, and there were some great landscape descriptions in this. That was some of my favorite parts in this. And I was in this less for the building stuff and more for the people. Honestly, the interactions with the locals was my favorite thing. Though, again, he wasn't always the best at that, and it also wasn't his focus. There are still some very cool, great, interesting, fun situations with other locals. I enjoyed that, but definitely not his number one priority. And so I made my way through this book over the course of November. This was basically my entire reading during November, and I thought it was decent. It was an interesting step into a genre that I usually don't read, and also a nice additional point of view into this subject, Afghanistan or the Middle East at large, that I've been reading about throughout this entire year. I had a couple of spontaneous library, how do you say it? Is it a library rental? I don't think it's a rental. A library borrow? I spontaneously brought some books from the library with me when I went there the last time in November. One of which I already read. And so I actually have for once like a physical thing to show. This is Pride of Baghdad by Brian K. Vaughan, whatever. So here we go with another piece of Middle Eastern literature, I guess. Yeah, honestly, the way I found this, I think I was at the library to do something else. I think I was reading magazines there, some economy magazines, because I'm not gonna buy magazines. And while I was there, I thought I might as well take something with me. I didn't really have anything planned to take with me because I was well and good with stuff to read already, but fuck it, might as well. I went to the website on my phone and just typed in Afghanistan to see if I would be able to find something quick and easy to read, maybe another photography book or whatever that could be interesting to pick up, to bring home. One of the things that popped up is this, the Pride of Baghdad. It's not Afghanistan, but it's Middle Eastern themed. I guess that's why it popped up in the search. And it's a graphic novel. Like, holy crap. It's a graphic novel about animals, so it's xenofiction and it's set in the Middle East. Huh? That sounds awesome. I was immediately sold. I needed to see this. And this is apparently based on a real occurrence during the US occupation of Iraq. So in 2003, during the US occupation of Iraq, apparently there was one bit of news that made it around the world, which was the basis of this graphic novel I'm talking here. Here's a write-up by the Guardian about this. Escaped lions shot dead by US troops. 4 starving lions which escaped from the Bagdad zoo were shot dead by US troops after 2 of the animals charged at them. Yeah. So while US soldiers were up in Iraq bombing the place, the Baghdad Zoo was one of the many places that were destroyed during this war. The animals escaped, the animals that survived escaped, including apparently these lions, which made it into the news because they were shot by US soldiers at some point. And this book is about these lions. It is xenofiction, so it is told from the point of view of the animals with some anthropomorphization, I hope I pronounced that word right, of the animals, so it humanizes them. It has them talk with each other. You know, they have emotions and whatnot. The animals are the characters. Incredibly interesting and cool setup, if you ask me. I love the setup. I love a lot about this as far as the concept and the art goes. The writing is a bit more difficult. This release is like the deluxe edition or whatever, so it has which is actually cool. It includes not only early storyboard drawings, but also it has genuine pitches of the story from the author to publishers and whatnot, and how the story developed, what the idea was from stage to stage, and it makes very clear that this was genuinely supposed to be something more than just a story for entertainment reasons. He had an idea, the characters in this represented things as commentary on this conflict or any conflict. It had commentary. So respectable in that regard. Clearly good intentions. The execution isn't that smooth though I don't think it's not because of the symbolism and metaphors that might be a bit very much on the nose. I think the problem with this is that the writing is very edgy, at least as edgy as a book about lions can be, as edgy as the writing, the dialogue writing between lions can be. It's just there's a lot of tired bickering between the characters that really gave off edgy teen writing. You know, the characters in this are very dramatic in a way that's hard to take serious, and in a way that can be a bit annoying. There's even some very, very much cliche background stories to a couple of these lion characters that's just unnecessary and uninventive, and it clashes it clashes especially because the actual setting of these lions in war-torn Baghdad is so original. So when it comes with a really cliche backstory that we would expect from some corny, cheap war drama or whatever, it makes your eyes roll like an extra turn or whatever. It's really that's the detriment of this graphic novel, and from what I've seen, it's also what it's mostly criticized for. Lots of people criticized this for the flat, often immature, and unnecessarily edgy, repetitively edgy character writing. That's its biggest flaw, because the concept itself is awesome, and luckily the concept itself and the art of this book make up for a lot of its weak writing. I enjoyed this still for what it is, though I completely understand the harsher criticisms of people online that I've seen. I thought this was still an interesting thing. I wish it was executed better, but it still isn't the worst. It still got things going for it. Yeah, that's the two books that I read so far. That's the current status. I'm reading other books right now that I hope to finish still before the end of the year. And I guess I'll see you then. So this is it for now. See you in a second. It is currently the 31st of December 2023. It is the day of New Year's Eve. It is the last day of the year on Storygraph. At the beginning of the year, I joined the Storygraph Genre Challenge 2023. Today is the last day that this is active. Then it is over. Out of 10 prompts, I completed 9. I will be talking about those later. But prompt number 6, a popular science book, meaning a book of scientific content that is aimed at a general audience and not scientists. I have decided to read this right here. This is, again, I'm gonna be talking about this in more detail later. This is an old tie-in book about a science trivia TV show in Germany that existed in the early 2000s. This book specifically came out like in 2006. I used to like the show as a kid, and I thought it would be a funny little thing to buy this on the internet, because I remember seeing the ads as a kid, but I never had the book back then. I thought it would be a funny little thing to buy this for like 99 cents on Amazon and see what the fuck this was about, and I would put this as my pop science thing. I've been hacking away at this for I think 2 months now, because it's a novel little cute idea for a tie-in book for this show, but like it's really dull if you're reading it front to back, because there's a lot of repetition. And today is the last day of the year. I need to finish this so I can say I have completed all prompts in this challenge. This is my final goal for the year. Realistically, I only have like a little under 2 hours left of this, but it's so hard to actually sit down and commit time to this, because it's just so dull after a while. This is my mission for today. And this is why I'm getting ready for a nice relaxing bath. And I'm gonna put my stinky gamer ass in this bath, this bubble bath, until I finished this book. Mark my words, I will finish this book. Hello. I did it. It's over. I finished this gosh darn book. This stupid ass German TV show tie-in book. And I'm now gonna be talking all about it. But first, the introduction. This is Clever, das Wissensbuch, translating to Clever, the knowledge book, allegedly written by the 2 TV show hosts Wigald Boning and Barbara Eligmann. But like, surely there were ghostwriters. In here it says the text is by a guy called Olaf Fritsche. So probably the actual like author of whatever this is. Anyway, so.
Clever, die Show, die Wissenschaft. Und hier sind Barbara Eligmann und Wigald mit ihren cleveren Gästen.
I already had like a brief introduction of this. Here's the quick recap. Back in the 2000s, there was a trivia science game show where the guests, oftentimes like German TV celebrities, answering questions based on experiments, like light science experiments that were performed live. Most of the time, having to answer either what the outcome of the experiment would be or what is causing them, what's the scientific explanation, whatever. It was a neat little evening entertainment bit. I liked the show quite a lot when I was a kid myself. 2004 to 2009 this ran on TV, and this book was like a piece of merch, a tie-in product that came out in 2006. I do remember as a kid seeing the ads for this, like during the show and whatever. You could win it if you were to call in and answer a question as an audience member at home or whatever. But like I said, I thought it would be a neat, funny little thing to get like one of these random old memories for a couple of cents online and just see what the hell I missed. A little bit of a glimpse at a time gone by or whatever. And like, this book isn't badly made. This book is like, it's clean, it's well formatted, there are pictures, there are little thingies, info boxes, and it has a solid structure, formatting, whatever. It's a decently designed product. It does its job, I guess, but its job is not very enticing, at least if you're consuming this book the way that I did, I guess. Because the thing is, this is basically just an assortment of like experiments that were done on the show, complete with the question that you as a reader could like try to answer yourself before the explanation is given to you. Some pictures from the show itself are included and so on. I'm actually even almost 100% certain that the text in this book, like introducing and explaining the experiments, is probably taken from the exact show notes of what the host said in the episode. I wouldn't be surprised. At least it's definitely written by the same person, I'm sure. It has the same like cadence, the same humor, the same style of wordplay, whatever, which is actually pretty charming. I like most of their of this witty writing. It's pretty good. I could hear like this guy Wigald Boning is the funny little scientist character in the show that does all the experiments with his quirky, eccentric personality, and like the text is mostly performed by him in the show. He's the guy talking all these funny little lines, explaining the things, and reading this book I could totally hear his voice saying these words. Like that was translated well, but again, it probably wasn't really translated from episode to book. It probably, for a lot of it, was just copied. And so yeah, with this book you basically have an assortment of show experiments with their respective questions to answer, so you could play this by yourself. Get the fun little introduction, get the question, guess your guess, and then have the explanation of what's happening with the experiment. Like a little neat game book, I guess, like coffee table book, or even like a shithouse book when you're taking a leak. That would make sense, actually, this kind of book. But reading it like I did, which was basically from front to back, like a novel or whatever, it's becoming pretty dang dull and repetitive pretty quickly. Especially since a lot of the experiments are based on, very basic like household knowledge or shit that you like learn on TV, on children's programming or whatever, or like in school, like nothing that blows your mind. Like, there are some clever little funny quirky tidbits and whatever in here, sure. Some of it is interesting, some of it is funny, but there's just so much in this book, so many little things that a whole bunch of them just seem dull, and like getting a lengthy multi-page explanation from something like really mundane, some physics thing or whatever that you have heard when you were in fucking elementary school already, that you are just familiar with because you have a brain, then it's just not interesting to read like a lengthy explanation of what you already know. I think if you're like a kid or whatever, it's maybe a neat little novelty item to have on your shelf, to have a little guessing game with yourself or whatever. Or like I said, as like a coffee table or shithouse book to like waste a couple minutes when you're sitting around. I guess it could still work for that, but otherwise this isn't really a book one needs. And since, like, I'm pretty sure all of these experiments in the book are taken from the show, and maybe some of them are original, but I wouldn't bet on it. And I don't really see a reason why you would like pick up this book and read it if you could watch the actual episode. That's much more interesting. I'm glad I fucking got through this. In a way, it was still an interesting glimpse at a time gone by or whatever, at a memory from my childhood that I missed, kind of, because I was aware of the book but never had the book as a kid. And there were some things in here that were funny or interesting or whatever, but overall this was kind of a chore to get through. I'm glad I'm done with it. I'm not gonna be looking at this ever again, that's for sure. And that was my 2023. That's it. That was the last book I actually finished. There are a couple of things that are still I'm in the middle of reading, or I was in the middle of reading, including Manga Messiah, which I had talked about in my previous thing, because this was one of my 3 pickups at the Frankfurt Book Fair in October. And in that video, I was saying that I would probably be talking about this in the December update or whatever, because I would be trying to read this during Christmas time, because why the fuck not? And here's the thing, I did start this on the day of Christmas Eve. I did start reading this on the 24th of December, and I thought I would get through this really quickly, because after all, this is a manga, allegedly. Technically, even though it still goes from front to back, it's kind of, I know, this is a confusing production, honestly. I thought I would be getting through this really quickly, like in the 2-hour thing or whatever, maybe, but I got halfway through during a lengthy reading session, and like at some point I just had enough, I guess, and I haven't finished it since. And as I'm recording this, we are already like a third of the way through January. I'm not even sure if I'm gonna go back and finish this, to be quite honest with you. Weird product though. Weird product. There's actually a lot to talk about this. I don't know if I want to though. I don't know. It's just this is apparently made by a genuine like religious organization in. Here, the confusion already starts. I think it's officially based in Japan, but it has ties to an American organization as well, which probably explains why this is so internationally available. But I mean, when I picked this up, I thought this would be like some Western people trying to emulate the manga look to be cool and hip for the kiddies. But apparently, this is technically genuinely a Japanese product, like made by Japanese writers and artists, but I think it's commissioned by an a Western organization or company or whatever. I don't know. It's a really confusing thing. I tried to read up about this. This is a series with multiple books, all like about stories from the Bible. This is just like a comprising volume of Jesus's adventures in the New Testament, but there's stuff from all throughout the Bible in other mangas in the series. And it has a Wikipedia page and everything. It has a whole history. It's not even like a fresh thing. This has been around for a while. It has its whole history. And like I tried to fucking understand what the hell this was all about and where this came from. And there was, I don't know, a lot of weird stuff, I feel like. I guess it's kind of funny to see like Jesus as this manga character going through some manga tropes and whatnot. Like props where props are due. I give them props for, you know, having a like full-on glossary of all the apostles with little like introductions and you know, and even having a freaking, I don't know how accurate this is, but even having a full-on map of the locations that Jesus travels through and whatnot, which is neat, if true, if accurate. I mean, it even, like, each chapter and whatnot, they actually put Bible sections as, I guess, sources or whatever, like to show what it is referring to, which, I mean, I didn't check any of these, but I'm assuming these are accurate, like, or whatever, like, genuine, which is neat. So it is clear to me that whoever made this was actually devoted to this, whatever that means, I guess. But yeah, I wasn't. It was a fun little look for a bit, but I don't know if I really wanna commit the time to finishing this. So if you're looking for some like Christian religious waifus, I guess you got your pick in this. Mary, Virgin Mary is pretty cute. If you're looking for that kind of waifu. John the Baptist has some funky moments, which is neat, I guess. And there's other books that I'm reading right now, but like, here's the thing. I think I'm done with these book vlogs, at least with these like regular book vlogs in which I talk about every single book that I'm reading. It was a neat thing to do. I've been doing this for like over a year now. I started making reading vlogs in August of 2021. That is now 2.5 years ago that I've been making these more or less regular vlogs where I talk about every single book that I'm reading. I guess when I started it was an easier thing to do anyway, because I only read like 10 books in a year or whatever, so there wasn't really much to film. But like 2023 was a whole different beast. I read so much this year, and like making a video talking about every single one in more or less detail. This took some time and effort, which I'm glad I did. It's a fun, even if I know no one or maybe like one or two other people watch these videos occasionally, but I'm doing this mostly for myself. It's just a fun little thing I do as like a diary, editing, video production hobby or whatever. And I'm glad I did this. I'm especially glad I did this. Like 2023, with a few occasions, I almost managed to do a vlog every month, which is pretty neat, but I'm not gonna be doing this from this point on. I think in general, the time has passed where I really had the big passion and free time to make a lot of YouTube videos. So I'm slow. I have been slowing down already, and I think we are at the point where it's just not gonna happen that much anymore. I'm still gonna, every time when I'm just in the mood to make a video or whatever, I'm gonna do a video when there's something I do want to capture and want to talk about. I will still make the occasional video in the future, but I'm not gonna be pushing myself to make these regular videos and especially with the reading stuff, I'm not gonna do videos anymore where I genuinely talk about every single book that I read. It's just way too much of time and effort that's like spent there. I mean, I started this whole thing for fun, and I guess the overarching theme of this reading vlog was kind of to document my attempt at fulfilling a reading goal that I set myself for that respective year. And I got that. I achieved that 3 times now. So how many more videos am I gonna make about this? Yeah, in 2021, I read 10 out of 10 books that I had planned to read. In 2022, I read 12 out of the 10 books that I wanted to read. And then in 2023, like flashback to January or whatever.
Going into the next year, 2023, I do not know how that's gonna go, because I am, like I said, quite busy at this point of my life. I'm probably gonna put my reading challenge for 2023 at 10 books again and just see what happens.
Now look at this. I read so many books that I extended my reading goal multiple times, and I ended up with reading 52 books out of 40 that I set myself at some point, because I realized, holy shit, I'm going through a lot of books. And looking back, 52 books in a year, for a lot of regular readers, that's not a lot, but it's looking back at my own past, it is genuinely the most amount of books I have read in a year ever, which I don't know where this came from, but I'm very happy about this. I probably put more time into reading books this year than I have ever done in my life before, which is like, it's another reason why I'm pretty glad I kept up these diaries throughout this year, because this was a big reading year for me. I'm very happy with that, with having captured all of that shit, but I think we're done. I am done with the actual capturing every single bit of reading that I do. I don't think we have to do that anymore. There's already so many hours of me rambling about random books on this channel. I think we're done. Again, if I ever feel like there's something that I actually feel like talking about with a point, like a book or some other thing, that's probably gonna happen. But I'm gonna chill on the whole YouTube thing in general, and I'm gonna chill hard on the actual like regular reading vlogs. I think that time is we're done with that. I think it's very appropriate to now actually for once look back at my 2023 as a year in review thing and see what the fuck happened. Storygraph has like one of these stats pages that gives you the whole thing. Congratulations on a great reading year. Yep, it was pretty great, not gonna lie. You finished 52 books across 10,000 pages. Honestly, not that many. It probably is gonna give me average page number, but like, I just wanna check it out now. So my average page is, the average length of the books I read this year is like 200 pages, so it's not really that much. And I'm pretty sure this would have been much lower if I hadn't read David Brin's Earth, which was almost 800 pages in itself, because most other books I read this year were low. I said this before, most of the books I read are below 300 pages. I'm more into the shorter books than the big commitments. And holy shit, man, reading Afghanistan as my first book this year, it feels like an entirely different time. It's a year ago now that I finished this book. I still remember sitting in the woods and talking about this. Fuck. It's a year ago now. But it probably also feels longer longer ago for me than it actually was, because this was a book I had been chopping away at for a whole another year before that. Like, this was on my shelf, going through it bit by bit for a long time before I actually finished it. Crazy though. And this was my real introduction to Afghanistan's history and culture, which I didn't expect at the time, but that was a whole ass thread that drew itself through my entire 2023 reading vlogs, because I kept having books about or adjacent to Afghanistan in there. And then of course the last book, I just talked about this, is the German TV show tie-in book, which terrible cover art too, kind of stupid to have this prominently displayed in my wrap-up just because it's the last book I read. That's unfortunate. It doesn't deserve this prominent of a spot, is what I'm saying. Your 2023 story graph, a mood map of your reading. Lighter books pushed line up, darker books pull a line down. So not too much variation here. I guess in September I read some heavy stuff, like mood-wise, vibe-wise. But this going up and down and up and down, so I had some variety in there. But I think I'm genuinely also just like, that's something I pay some attention to have different vibes, to not always have the heavy shit or like the happy light shit. You need the variety in there. You pondered thought-provoking themes, dived into complex ideas, and rode a roller coaster of emotions, and most of the stories developed at a steady pace. Yeah, this doesn't surprise me. I think most books I read medium to fast pace. I don't think I usually read the book that's slow paced. You pondered thought-provoking themes. I do remember reading some heavy shit this year. I had generally a solid amount of non-fiction, but I also do remember some heavy shit, like the what was that book? The Phenomenological Analysis of Transphobia. I'm still thinking about that from time to time. That was a heavy, difficult book in terms of theme and like content, you know? Books and pages read per month in 2023. We got the pages in red and the books in blue. April had few books, but a lot of pages. I think this might have been the time when I read Watership Down, so yeah, a lot of the pages I read were from the relatively thick book Watership Down. Didn't really finish much in that month because I spent so much time reading the bigger book of Watership. July had a whole ass like reading dip, I remember that. I spent more time with other things that around that time. And then in fall we had so much reading. Where was David Brin's Earth? Was it here in September or was it in October? I don't remember. I think it was in October actually. Which would explain again why I was reading 700 pages but only finishing 2 books. Yeah, David Brin's Earth is definitely in here. Congratulations on meeting your reading goal, which again, I set this at 10 books at first, which I already broke in spring or something, so I put it up to 20, I think, and then later in the year, again at 40, and I still succeeded that. I didn't expect that. The genres you spent the most time with in 2023, we got 11 books in horror, we got 9 books in science fiction, 9 books in literary fiction, 7 books in the LGBTQIA plus genre. Okay, I mean I did read a bunch of trans literature. There must be more here. Probably all the like porn industry non-fiction books that I read that are probably in here as well. And then we have contemporary fiction, just 4. That's actually, contemporary fiction is such a broad little meaning genre tag that I'm surprised it's this little, especially since literary fiction got 9. Were those not contemporary stories? The longest book, my man David Brin and his Earth, 700 pages on here. Yeah, this was a big chunky. I already said it in the vlog that belonged to that book. This was the longest book I had actually read in my life up until this point, and I was very happy that I stuck with it. This was a great book that I wouldn't call perfect. It's not a 10 out of 10 for me, but it's close. I still think about this book. This is actually a book. This is actually the kind of book that I miss. I miss the time where I read this because it was just so interesting almost all the time. And ever since I finished this book, I haven't really read a great book after reading David Brin's Earth. I'm still looking for the next book that makes me feel similarly. Because everything I've read since was just okay, was good, but not as great. Shortest book with 26 pages was Philip K. Dick's stupid pro-life propaganda short story, The Pre-Persons. I mean, it's not really a book, it's just a short story that was included in some sort of publication, I guess, but it's the shortest text I logged on here, apparently. And then the average, here we go, we already calculated that, but whatever. The average length of the book you read was 204 pages, and it took you around 20 days to finish each book. Interesting. Even the time, it took me around 20 days to finish each book. Huh, that's not that bad. Again, like David Brin's Earth and to a lesser degree Watership Down being a little bigger, these two books are definitely pulling this 20 days estimate calculation up for sure. If those two books wouldn't be there, I feel like this would be lower, way lower. Least time spent reading something: One Day for Breatharians by Kellen Wink, which again, that was a short story as well, which did end up becoming the basis for a full novel though, which I still wanna read sometime. And here we fucking go. Afghanistan by Thomas Barfield. Between starting it and finishing it, we had 496 days that passed. It took me over a year to finish this book because I had lengthy droughts, lengthy pauses. That's why it felt much longer than just a year since I read this. The authors you spent the most time with in 2023. I'm usually not much of a person that reads like a lot from one author. I think that's also just a thing that started recently. But here it's like, we got Junji Ito with 3 books. That's just because I read the 3 volumes of his horror manga Uzumaki. Then we have Kalilullah Khalili, which is kind of funny. That's that Afghan poet I had been talking about multiple times during my vlogs, because I read like 2 poetry collections and 1 novel by him. I think I read like, having read these 3 things, I might have read like 90% of the entirety of English translated works by him. And we got Philip K. Dick, of course. Was it a short story collection? No, this year in Dick history, it was the Pre-Persons short story. It was it was Valis, the fucking nut house book, and it was the one with you. What was it? What was it called? Ubik, the Ubik book, which was fine, but not like that great. This was a buddy read with my friend Uwe. We were part of 1 completed buddy read, which was Philip K. Dick's Ubik. So 2% of your 2023 reading was shared with friends. Yep. 2023's average rating was 3.45. Yeah, so above average, which is good. 2023's 5-star reads is such a funny collection. I mean, starting over here, Watership Down, Richard Adams's iconic classic xenofiction novel, which I adored and absolutely loved. That's genuinely one of my favorite books of all time now. Yeah, makes sense that it's in here, and I'm not the only one that loves this book so much. So this is not really a special outlier or whatever. But then we have the German title, Die spektakuläre Reise ins Schwarze Loch. The English original of Edward Packard's book was Journey Through the Black Hole or whatever, which is a choose-your-own-adventure children's book, which I revisited because I used to have this as a kid, and I was so amazed with how well this held up. I had such a fun time that this was generally a 5 out of 5 stars book for me. Funny to see it here though. And Whitney Azoy's Buzkashi, Game and Power in Afghanistan, which was like one of the most intriguing and interesting non-fiction books I've read in a long time, about a super interesting kind of niche subject, the Afghan sport of Buzkashi. I still think about that nowadays still. Quite the assortment of 5-star reads. It hurts me a little bit that David Brin's Earth isn't on here as well, but because part of me, like, David Brin's Earth was easily one of the best books I read this year. Easily. It just by a smidge, it didn't make it to the full 10 out of 10. That's why it's not in here. But like, it's so close, part of me kind of wants it to be in here. Then the 2023 ratings in total here. Yeah, most of them were good solid reads, which is nice. 15 out of 52 books were solid reads. What's the 125 star? Oh, that's probably the pro-life short story by Philip K. Dick. They were stupid. Some months were better than others. The highest average rating was in October. October was a good month. Mainly because of David Brin's Earth, I guess. I don't even remember what else I read that month. Was it just some Junji Ito stuff? I don't remember. Turns out November wasn't your favorite month with an average of 2.5. Nothing much happened in November. I think I only finished one book in November, didn't I? 2 books in November. September had the most pages read in a month. Yeah, that must have been the month with the Junji Ito mangas, which you just fly through because they are mangas. So that's not surprising that the page number is that high. Other Storygraph users and your 2023 reads. This is kinda interesting. Obviously, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is the book that I've read with the most other people having it read too this year. 217,710 other users had this shelved this year. So I guess they interacted with this book this year. I don't think it means that they necessarily read it this year. And Brief Variants by Kellen Wink, the short story, I'm the only person that shelved it because probably just because nobody cares to like log short stories that haven't actually had a print release or whatever on Storygraph. I just did it out of completionist sake. Jaroslav Ponkar's photography book Afghanistan was I think this is supposed to say the highest rated book in general, but I think I'm the only person that rated this book this year. So of course my higher rating makes like the whole rating. Yeah, I'm the only person that reviewed and rated this book on here. You explored the works of 44 new authors, including Sayaka Murata, Anna Kavan, Cormac McCarthy. Yeah, I mean, most books that I read were from authors I haven't read before. There's so many books. It's pretty rare that I go for a book from an author that I'm already familiar with. 14 of the books you read were part of a series. Again, you revisited a total of 2 books. Yeah, I revisited these 2 Choose Your Own Adventure books. Wait, no. Oh, this should be 3. There should be the Journey Through the Black Hole book in here that was a revisit as well. Honestly, also, this Free Investigators book was also a revisit. I guess Storygraph just didn't catch that because I wasn't logging them right or whatever. You finished all of the books you picked up this year, no DNFs. That's not true. Okay, there were no books I said I'm done. I'm putting them aside and I'm done. But there are a couple of books that I started and haven't yet finished. Like this short story anthology book I haven't finished yet and I haven't looked into it in months now. And Manga Messiah, of course, which I'm not sure. This might be a DNF. I might put this at some point on the actual did not finish shelf. I just haven't done that. But true, yeah, I guess I have always finished what I started in this year, with the exception of that short story collection, huh? You read 4 books from your own shelves this year. So 4 books I actually own is what they mean, I think. Yeah, these are 4 books I actually physically own on my shelf, yeah. I don't think I've bought a single new book though. Well, that's not true. I did buy the Clever book, and I did buy the Journey Through the Black Hole because I couldn't find my original copy. I did buy those 2 books, but I think that's actually it. I didn't buy any other books. No, I did also pay for some Kindle ebooks, I think, because I couldn't get them anywhere else. Successfully completed 1 reading challenge. Yeah, that was the Storygraph genre challenge, which I had to finish Clever for. And then we have just a collection of all the books that I read. Most books were reflective, challenging, and emotional. Oh, this is actually pretty even split with the pacing. I thought it would be heavier leaning on fast and medium, but I guess I had some solid slow ones as well, huh? But yeah, most of the books that I read, 45 out of 52 books that I read were below 300 pages. Yeah, not surprising at all. So what were the LGBTQ books that I read? Isn't that a thing that you click on? Yeah, Girl, Flesh and Fluids. 2 trans 2 novels by a trans author about trans characters. We got Page Boy with the trans autobiography. We got Blutbuch with the non-binary author autofiction novel. Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke with the lesbian couple. The Life and Death of Letitia King, which is about transphobia. And The Deep River Solomon. Not really a prominent theme though. Yeah, I guess that's it. I guess that is my 2023 reading year. That's the conclusion. What a year, 52 books. More than ever before for me. And yeah, like I said, this is kind of it. There will be the occasional video going forward, but I'm not gonna be as thorough anymore. I'm not gonna put out these like hour-long vlogs every single month where I talk about every single book that I read. I just can't bring up the time and effort anymore. It's over, it's done. I'm glad I finished this year. I'm glad I pulled through until the end of the year of 2023, but 2024 now, I need to relax more. I've spent so much time rambling about every single book, filming it and editing it. I could have read like 10 more books in that time. If you watched any of these videos over the past 2.5 years, I appreciate it wholeheartedly. Thank you very much for listening to my stupid rambling. And I see you the next time, whenever that will be. Keep reading, and bye-bye.